Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? Stay tuned for this episode where my special guest is Sara Chana-Silverstein. She is the author of a book called Moodtopia, and she's going to share with us some tips on how to create that mood utopia with some all-natural ingredients. Sara is also a master herbalist. And you know, this week, Thanksgiving is close by, and I wanted to share some Thanksgiving memories with you, a Thanksgiving story, and also a recipe. So stay tuned for all of that coming up in this week's episode. So, you know, I always refer to Thanksgiving dinner as a domestic opera. When I remember Thanksgiving dinner with my grandparents, I can hear my grandmother's voice singing an Italian song from one of the Italian operas, but the dinners themselves were akin to a theatrical opera performance. My grandmother, or Nonna Maria, loved Italian opera. She loved to sing. Whenever I see or listen to one of the great Italian classic operas, they bring me back to some of my most spectacular food memories because of her singing at our holiday meals. My grandmother even sang with a young Mario Lanza in a local church-produced opera in South Philadelphia. But being that Nonna loved opera, when I look back on memories of her dinners, what comes to mind is the theatrics of her preparation to the presentation. Always almost the same thrill as witnessing an opera from the overture to the final act. One of her grandest operas was Thanksgiving Dinner. It had many acts, from the grand opening act of a table full of appetizers to the first course, which was almost always her scrumptious lasagna made from freshly made pasta dough. Yes, that's right, our first course was a lasagna. Many Italian families will attest to this for me. Our first course being lasagna on Thanksgiving Day. Well, then the turkey arrived as the second course, and everything else arrived separately as its own course. The roasted potatoes with fresh rosemary, the spinach sauteed in garlic and olive oil, then the salad. Well, salad is typically served last in Italian households and in Italy. And then plates of fresh fruits and nuts, then fresh fruit Macedonia, which is a type of fresh fruit salad made with fresh fruits and seasons, or fruits she had preserved from the summer. I have recipes for Macedonia in many of my cookbooks. Then the desserts taking stage, one after the other, every course being so special and made with such care that you had to focus on one course at a time, just like at the opera, one act at a time. And Nonna was always the diva of the opera, from its preparation to the presentation and the final act. And I can't forget about the audience, an audience of 35 or more family and friends gathered around as many tables as one can fit in a kitchen, old and young and in between, all oohing and eyeing at the arrival of another course, just like the beginning of the acts of an opera. And upon the arrival of an act or course, the audience became quiet, anxious to savor what was before them. And the tastes were as pleasing to the palate as the sounds of a great tenor like Pavarotti and Caruso, or Mario Lanza, or soprano Maria Callas. You don't want to miss a minute of a memorable performance, the opera. And the final act, and after dinner and all the plates had been cleared away, the memorable final act was Nonna serenading us with one of her opera classics. And then when Nonna took a break, Nonno, my grandfather, would do his part by singing one of the Italian love songs he serenaded her with when they first met. Oh, what a beautiful opera, and unfortunately one that I can never experience again. So I am thankful this Thanksgiving for not just the food on the table, but thankful for being given the gift of all those special memories that I can look back on, the Thanksgiving opera. If you also have some special Thanksgiving memories, please share them with us here Memories are special gifts to be shared and to be thankful for. Hashtag them the Maria Liberati Show, and please share them on social media, and we may share them in some upcoming episodes for the holidays, or you can share them as a comment on my blog. If you hashtag the Maria Liberati Show, they may be selected to be shared on one of our episodes. And I did promise to share a Thanksgiving recipe. And this is one of my favorite desserts for Thanksgiving. I call it Thanksgiving in Tuscany. And it's from my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, Da Vinci Style. 1/2 cup of milk, 1.5 cups of rice, 1 cup of sugar, 3 eggs, 1/3 cup of raisins, 8 hazelnuts, 1/4 cup of pinoli nuts, 1/3 cup of butter, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, zest of a half lemon grated, and be sure to use an organic lemon since you're using the peel. Boil the milk, add in the uncooked rice and sugar. Cook until the liquid is absorbed. Remove from the heat and let cool. Once cool, add in the eggs, raisins, hazelnuts, pinoli nuts, softened butter, baking powder, grated lemon zest. Blend all together with a spoon. Butter and flour an 8-inch cake pan. Now you can also, if you don't want to butter and flour the 8-inch cake pan, you can just coat it with parchment paper, which makes it even simpler, because then once this is done, you can just pull up the ends and pull the dessert out. So once you either butter and flour an 8-inch cake pan or cover it with parchment paper, you're going to pour in the batter, bake it in an oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and bake it for 30 minutes. Serve chilled. You can also dust some powdered sugar on the top if you like, or serve it with some fruit on the side. It is really delicious, a very simple dessert, and most of you will have most of these ingredients on hand. And if you get to create this dessert for Thanksgiving or any time, please take a photo, share it. Take a photo of your Thanksgiving table, share it, hashtag it the Maria Liberati Show, and we might choose your photo to be put on the website and shared with everyone at themarialiberattishow.com. And lastly, I just wanted to share a poem that I had written. And, Thanksgiving is really the time to be thankful for what we do have. And this is all about Thanksgiving and gratitude, and sending wishes for a happy Thanksgiving to my listening audience out there. This is the day to remember to give thanks for things that we sometimes take for granted, things that are really special gifts. So if you can see the food on your plate, be thankful for the gift of sight. If you can eat the food on your plate, be thankful for the gift of taste. If you can hear the laughter of children and family and friends, be thankful for the gift of hearing. If you can walk, sit, and stand, be thankful for the gift of movement. If you can shop for the food and cook it, be thankful that you have the ability to do those things. If you have a home to cook your food and eat it, be thankful. If you have a plate of food, be thankful. However you spend Thanksgiving, be thankful for what you have. Expressing gratitude is a powerful emotion. Peace, love, and lots of pasta for a happy, peaceful, and delicious Thanksgiving. And today I am fortunate to have Sara Chana-Silverstein, who is a master herbalist and author of the book Moodtopia. I always say that food is really like a natural medicine. So we're going to hear what Sara is going to tell us about bringing us all into this Moodtopia. I love the name of that book, Sara. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Maria. Great seeing you. Great meeting you. Yes, food is a really important part of keeping your mood stable. And I want to say I'm a master herbalist. And when I wanted to write a book, I was like, should I write a book about allergies or cold and flu? Or I was vacillating back and forth. And then I saw that there was this common theme throughout my office. That people would come in for a sinus infection or a yeast infection, and they would always talk about their moodiness or their emotions. It became a very big part of our conversation.
Right.
And what I noticed was in my office is that we have women that are totally together emotionally, smiling all the time, happy, right? And then we have women on the other end of the spectrum that's really went through a tragedy or fell apart emotionally, and they're on psychotropic drugs, and they're really working for them. But then there's the rest of us that live not quite happy and sparkly every day of our lives, and not quite falling apart, and somewhere in the middle. And most people don't understand that that's where herbs shine. If you're going through a situation and you're very sad and feeling overwhelmed, you can take an herb, either an herb tea or an herb tincture, and it can really help get you out of that funk. If it's before your cycle, during your cycle, or after your cycle, or somewhere in between, herbs can really help with that hormonal moodiness. And even, Maria, for ladies that have stopped getting their cycle. So the reason I chose the book to write on moods, Moodtopia, is that there's a lot of herb books on colds and flus and sinuses, but there was not one herb book out there on moods. And that's why I chose that subject.
Wow. That's really, really interesting. And I've always felt that, you know, what we eat does have the power to, and I've seen it a lot, you know, it has the power to really change our moods. I'm sure, I mean, you're more of an expert on that. So give us some examples. If, is there, you know, like give us some examples of, you know, some type of an elixir, an herbal tea or something you might be able to make that.
So I want to start, I want to start with the herb called rose petal.
Okay.
Now, rose petals have been used for generations all over the world for people that have a broken heart. So all rose petals are edible. I mean, I wouldn't get the rose petals from a florist because they do add dyes and pesticides. But natural rose petals are used for people that are going through an illness or having a loved one that's had an illness or being a caregiver to an older parent. And what rose does, it actually allows joy to come back into your life when you're in a state of broken heart is. So especially after all the lockdowns, after COVID, people lost their jobs. They didn't see their loved ones. They weren't celebrating their holidays in the way that they were used to. And a lot of people really felt brokenhearted. So rose is an herb you can take in tea form. Very inexpensive. You can get it in tea bags. You can get it in bulk form. For anybody that's watching, I have some rose petals here. For those of you that are just listening, you can look it up online, and you can either make it into a tea or take it in what is called a tincture. I'm going to jump and tell you what a tincture is, and then we'll go back to more plants that are helpful. So a tincture is when you take a plant like rose or other herbs, and you pour grain alcohol or a glycerite over it, and you strain it, and you get what is called a tincture. A tincture is a liquid form of the herbs. Herbalists love herbs in tincture form because it's so easy. You can carry it in your backpack. You can carry it in your briefcase. You can have it on your desk at work. And if all of a sudden sadness overtakes you and you really don't want to be in that sad state, you can take some of this herb, just plop it in a shot glass, add a little bit of juice or water, and down it like vodka. And within 20 minutes, you will feel and see that your mood is shifting to where you want it to go.
How about that? Wow. Unbelievable. You know, it seems so simple. It's something that is just so simple to do that. How about some other other herbs, I've heard that there's herbs that just like smelling them, and like things like rosemary, oregano, things, some of those have the power to lift our moods also. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So those are essential oils, which I
Yes.
would like to get to, but I want
Oh,
to jump
okay.
to another herb
Yes, go ahead.
called lavender. So
Ah,
lavender is very
my
famous
mind. Yes.
in an essential oil,
Yes.
and we love lavender essential oil. Lavender is used to help people go to sleep,
Uh-huh.
calm down, also make them feel better. In
Uh-huh.
clinical studies, they took lavender oil and
Yes.
they wafted it in geriatric homes through
Uh-huh.
the heating vents, and
Yes.
they found that the geriatric patients could reduce their use of sleeping pills.
Oh,
We know with
wow.
pediatrics, you
Uh-huh.
can take some lavender oil, put a couple drops on their pillowcase, a
Right.
couple drops on their nightgown,
Uh-huh.
and it can help them maintain a deeper sleep. So
Wow.
that's what you were talking about breathing in essential oils. You
Yes.
don't need to spend a lot of money with essential oils. You
Right.
can get now on Amazon or any place that online market that you like, you can get
Yes.
diffusers for $10.
Yes.
But you could literally just go to your 99-cent store, get a $1 spray bottle, add a little bit of water, and you could just and add a couple drops of essential oil and spray it around your room.
Uh-huh.
But I want to say that lavender taken in tea or tincture form
Yes.
is for stuck sadness. Now,
Oh,
rose is more for broken heart, like you just got broken when you lost your job, or
right.
maybe a relationship fell apart and you
Right.
feel broken. But lavender is for stuck sadness. So
Ah,
let's say you go through an experience
uh-huh.
and you're legitimately sad, like,
Huh?
you lose a loved one, or, a neighbor you loved moved out of your apartment building or
Right.
next door,
Right.
and you want to move on, but you can't move on.
Right.
That's where lavender comes in.
Wow.
You can drink the tea or take the tincture, and
Uh-huh.
it can help you move on with sadness. So
Uh-huh.
you should say to me, Maria, and everybody out there, well, what if I'm brokenhearted and sad? And the
Yes.
answer is, yeah, you know what I mean? You could be, my heart is broken and I'm sad.
I'm sad
You can mix together the rose and lavender
about
and
that.
drink it in a tea or tincture, and it
Uh-huh.
will help you move on to your next step.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Really, really very, very interesting. Yeah, I was just about to ask you about lavender because I know there are so many things I've heard about it, and it has an interesting kind of history and folklore to it. So I was thinking of lavender. I'm glad you brought it out. I wasn't sure. So, oh wow, that's great. So
So we can go on to the next herb if you
yes,
want,
yes,
because I
definitely.
have so many. And again, everybody that's listening or watching, they're not going to become a master herbalist, but
Right.
my whole goal is to introduce people
Uh-huh.
to the power that herbs have
Yeah.
and our historical and cultural use of herbs. So skullcap
Mm-hmm.
is an herb spelled Skullcap.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the mint family, and it's used for nervous tension.
Huh.
So I know everybody out there can relate to
They,
sometimes having
yes.
nervous tension when you
Yes.
feel it in your stomach, when you
Yes.
haven't slept well a couple nights in a row, and you
Yes.
still have to show up to work, you still have to show up to a family gathering.
Yes.
That's where skullcap shines.
There you
That
go.
is an herb that you feel within your body within 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
It's an herb that can release that tension
Uh-huh.
without making you feel sedated. A
Wow.
lot of the medications out there will just make you feel so sleepy. But
Yes.
I don't want to be sleepy in the middle of the day. I
No.
want to be calm,
Mhm.
invigorated, and less nervous. And
Yes.
that's where the herb skullcap just shines. It's a
Wow.
phenomenal herb. And I bet there's probably not any listener out there that couldn't benefit from the herb skullcap.
Oh, I think probably all of us could benefit from that. That sounds great. Well, and I've never tried. I know I have lots of mint growing in my garden. So I'm always like sniffing it in. It seems to energize, mint seems to energize, but skullcap I've never tried. So that sounds really interesting.
Skullcap's great. And if you allow me, I'd love to move on to the next
Yes,
herb,
go ahead.
which is an herb called motherwort.
Uh-huh.
Motherwort is an herb for hormonal gloominess,
Okay.
hormonal sadness,
Uh-huh.
hormonal gloominess.
Uh-huh.
So you can again have that before a woman has her cycle, during her cycle, after her cycle. And as I mentioned before, even after the cycle stopped,
Uh-huh.
that's when you can absolutely benefit from motherwort. And I want to tell you a story because we tend to think of women as being gloomy and crabby.
Yes.
And what happens is I have found that motherwort is also phenomenal for men. So
Uh-huh.
here's the story.
There you
I
go.
had a woman, she had been my client for years.
Uh-huh.
I'm also a lactation consultant, and
Uh-huh.
I had helped her breastfeed her babies. And she came to me for her kids' ear infections and strep throat, and we treated it herbally, and she wanted me to treat her husband.
Uh-huh.
So her husband came in, and he was so grumpy. And I was running through all the herbs in my mind,
Uh-huh.
and he was so grumpy. And I had always learned that motherwort was a woman's herb. And
Wow.
I took a jump and I said, I'm going to use this herb for a guy. And I called my teacher at that time and I said,
Huh?
can we use motherwort for men? She
Mhm.
said, well, it's not the custom, but try it. Well, this end of the story is that 2 weeks later, my client's wife called me up and said, I don't know what you gave to my husband, but I have never seen him so happy and less grumpy in our 25 years of marriage.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was the time that I said, for sure, motherwort, which is historically and culturally used for women when they're
Yes.
hormonally grumpy, can absolutely be used when men are hormonally grumpy. And you know
Wow.
what?
Uh-huh.
Men get hormonally grumpy as often as women do. It's
Wow.
just not spoken about.
Not spoken about. How about that? That's really, really interesting. Very interesting. So that's for both then male or female. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So can you give, oh yes, I was going to say, go on to the next. Yes.
Okay. So another herb that is used so successfully around the world is an herb called bacopa.
Uh-huh.
Bacopa. It's an herb originating from India.
Uh-huh.
And this is an herb that's used for brain fog. Can
Mhm.
you tell, Maria? I'm kind of checking off the list of everything I think every human being I've ever met.
Yes.
Brokenheartedness, stuck
Right.
sadness, agitation, hormonal gloominess, right?
Yes,
And the
yes.
next thing is brain
Brain
fog.
fog.
So
Uh-huh.
bacopa is an herb that also helps with anxiety and stress.
Mhm.
And it's the most popular herb if you feel brain fog, like you get into a room and you're like, what was I doing here?
Uh-huh.
Or you open the computer, you're like, I know there's something super important I need to do.
Yes.
And bacopa is an herb that shines in that area.
Huh.
And here's the question. People out there are saying, Maria, well, what if I'm brokenhearted, sad,
Right.
stressed, hormonally gloomy, and have brain fog? The
Yes.
answer is that you can take all those
All.
5 herbs at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So let me explain it to you. So herbalists combine herbs like a jazz band. So a saxophone on itself is by itself is fabulous.
Right.
But if you add a saxophone with a keyboard and drums, you have this fantastic beat. So we know that these herbs work together in a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
So when I have a person in front of me, male, female, in their 20s, in their 70s, or anywhere in between, even as kids, people are very complicated. And we're always going through many different emotional challenges at the same time.
Right.
So in my book, Moodtopia, What I do is I go herb by herb singly. So if people live in an area where they don't have master herbalists, or they financially can't afford to go to an herbalist, they can read my book, Moodtopia, which is very easy to read. And I go herb by herb because what people can do is try one herb at a time, see how it feels, see how it resonates in their body. And if they love it, stick with it. If they love it and feel they need a little more help in another area, they can then stop that herb and try another herb. And after a couple months of playing around with different herbs, they can then either take the herbs singly, because they do work single. Because Maria, a saxophone by itself is a phenomenal sound. Or they can start doing some mixtures themselves, or a lot of master herbalists have herbal companies where they make blends where they call adaptogen calm, or stress release, or anxiety fighter. And these combinations can really help people.
Wow. That's
cope in this.
Go ahead. Yes.
Cope in this crazy world of chaos is what I was going to say.
Oh, yes, definitely. I think they're all great things all great ingredients to use, yes, to help us cope in this crazy world and these crazy times, definitely. So Sara, we're just about up, but the time is up, but I wanted to tell people, so where can they find Moodtopia? And you also online.
Sure. Thank you, Maria. Moodtopia is available on Amazon and all booksellers on the internet. And they can follow me on Instagram every other day, or at least a couple times a week. I try to put up little quick 1-minute videos so people can be introduced. I actually go outside and show people the plants. That's Sara Chana-S. That's my tag. It's SaraChanas. And they can also email me and reach out to me through my website, which is moodtopiabook.com.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think we're all going to be in a better mood now, or able to be once we go out and get some of these. Definitely. Thanks so much for helping.
Maria, it's been great. And I just want people to know that herbs are our gift from the planet. And women have been healers for generations. And most people knew about the herbs that were growing in their area. And if I have just one more moment to share this last final story. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And I went into Midtown Manhattan to begin to learn about herbs. I was so excited. And most of the people came from Connecticut, New Jersey, upstate New York, in these beautiful urban and rural settings. And my teacher said to me, Maria, if you want to heal a person, see what grows around them. So I was a little upset, and I went over to her and I said, have you been to Brooklyn lately? I'm going to tell you what grows around us. We have concrete, we have fire escapes, we have cars, and we have a lot of dog poop. Like, really? That's what's growing in Brooklyn. So she laughed and handed me what was called the Peterson Guide, which is a guide to edible and herbal plants. And she said, do me a favor, take a walk around the block. And even in Brooklyn, within 1 block radius, I found 10 medicinal herbs growing through the cracks of the concrete, behind broken down cars. There were medicinal plants growing everywhere. So what I would like to suggest to our listeners is if they look online and just Google edible or medicinal plants that grow in their city. Now, I'm not saying that they should go out there and make medicine from these plants, because you need a lot of education to really be able to identify the plants. But to walk down the street and see a ginkgo tree, because ginkgo leaves are used for asthma and also brain fog, and seeing some yellow dock. These are plants that are indigenous across the world. They grow in most places. And it's very empowering to just see and recognize edible plants that grow in your area. And what happens is it'll make you feel more connected to the planet. And really, I believe, even in this world of chaos, even in this world of everybody's a little confused, in my opinion. No matter what happens with global warming or global climate change, the plants grow in the spring, plants grow in the fall, and in the winter and the summer. And for the past 20 years, with all the chaos, there's never a season that I can't find, even in Brooklyn, 10 to even 15 medicinal plants growing. So I think that's a great homework for your listeners. Definitely. And they're really going to be surprised at it.
Definitely. No, I love that. I think it's a great homework assignment, because I'm always telling people to try to become more connected with their food. And herbs are, definitely a food, because you can add them to, whether you use them as a tincture or tea or an infusion, you can also add them to foods. So I love that, because it gets people to be more connected to the herbs that grow around them. And you're right. I think people take it for granted. They just don't think that there's anything in their area unless they start really researching, and, they think everything is far away. And a lot of times it's right in your own backyard. So I definitely love that. I think that's a great homework assignment. So yeah, and anybody out there, if you find an herb, and some of the herbs that Sara's talking about in your own backyard, share a picture with the listeners here, and you can hashtag it the Maria Liberati Show. Share it on my blog or on Instagram or on, any of our social media sites, anything as well. I love it. All right, Sara Chana-Silverstein, thank you so much, and much success with Moodtopia. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show. And as always, thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and this week's guest, Sara Chana-Silverstein, author of Moodtopia. And if you get to create my Thanksgiving in Tuscany dessert and share it at your Thanksgiving table, please take a picture. Share your Thanksgiving table photos with us. Hashtag it the Maria Liberati Show, and we'll be sure to share it on my website and my blog as well. Just give us permission to do that by hashtagging the Maria Liberati Show. And you will also be entered in a giveaway for a copy of one of my books from The Basic Art of Italian Cooking. And you can find me at marialiberati.com, on Facebook at chefmarialiberati.com, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on Pinterest at Maria Liberati, on Twitter at Maria Liberati, on LinkedIn at M Liberati, on my Vimeo channel, Maria Liberati, and on my Roku channel, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati. And happy and healthy Thanksgiving to all. Peace, love, and pasta until next time. Thanks for listening.